Alright, so we're back in the world of Path of Exile 2, and today guys I have a very special build for you. This is my Bonestorm Witch. This is a build that I've been wanting to make for the better part of the last week. Just had a little bit of time to actually put a little bit of effort into it, and I kind of want to give you guys the idea or the concept behind it. This build utilizes Bonestorm to deal pretty high single target damage, also using Bone Cage to deal with AoE mobbing, and this is kind of the concept of the build. We run around, we stab and impale enemies, and we use the impale to give us frenzy charges to blow enemies up with our Bonestorm. It is a fairly tinky build, and it's a very fun build, but it is in the early stages. I am capable of doing tier 15 maps currently with the build, but as I said, it's still a very early build. With that in mind, this build feels really fun. It offers a bit of alternative like gameplay for witches, and I just really want to show you guys the build. So let's begin. Alright, what's up guys? So we are over on the build section of the video, and yeah, let's go over the build. I kind of want to start off with the core concept of the build and give you guys a bit of understanding of how I do it, because as I say in pretty much every video, I try to make something unique and different, and this feels pretty unique. I don't think I've seen anyone play like this, but let's go over it. First things first, let's look at our stats here on the left, and let's talk about it because there are some things I wanted to point out. First off, as you can probably tell, our resistances across the board are not very great, and there's a very good reason for that. The reason for that was because this build was initially supposed to be a non-elemental resistance build. I know that sounds crazy, but I wanted to try the Veil of the Night crown, and because I thought it was cool, maybe it would be something of value with the witch. Seeing that it has 50% maximum life on it, and seeing that the witch scales her crit damage based on her life, I thought maybe this could be a viable option. We even have an item like this, the Rondella Frugality, which will give us increased cast speed, crit, as well as HP and energy shield. A lot of things that like she likes a lot of. But you lose a ton of elemental resistances, and so I wanted to try it out and see if it brought some value. It does feel very good until you start getting into the end game where elemental becomes almost overwhelming. With that in mind, I also didn't necessarily have evasion or armor with this build, so essentially I ran around with a lot of HP but almost no resistance, and essentially no mitigation, and it didn't work very well. Evasion probably could have made a difference in this build, but overall it felt like it was too much of a detriment to try to make this work for 50% maximum life. And like most uniques in Path of Exile 1, very likely in Path of Exile 2, most of them don't really have a place and very likely won't be balanced. Personally, I don't have faith in grinding gear games. Sorry, I don't have faith in them to balance these things out. So unfortunately, we're going to be scrapping that and moving away from it. With that in mind, even with those shortcomings with no evasion and very low resistances, we're still able to clear most of the maps. Again, they're not the most juice maps or anything like that. They're irradiated. They have the deadly element mutation, whatever it's called, making the elites more stronger. Has all those kind of things that makes the map a lot stronger, but you know, it's not by far the best build in the world yet, because it still needs to make up for those shortcomings from the initial idea of the build. Now I kind of want to make sure that's out in the open so you guys have an idea of why we're gonna, where we're at in the build. We will be fixing it. We will be moving towards energy shield evasion on the build and covering our resistances in the future, and a lot of this actually is because of this amulet. It does take a lot of my resistances, as you can probably tell. If I don't have this amulet in, I would actually have my resistances near capped, but I really do like it because, as you can probably tell looking at our cast speed, it's pretty damn nice, all things considered, and this makes it really easy for us to actively, just impel the world. I actually plan to make this AoE much bigger so we can actually deal more, AoE damage. Now, keep in mind, I am a witch, and the witch uses a portion of her health to cast spells, which is a little weird, but that's kind of the concept of it. I do want to go over our skill gems first because that's super important, and we'll go over the rest. So first things first, we're just using a normal wand. It doesn't matter what kind of wand it is. You're not forced to use a bone wand, but we're using Bonestorm with Brutality, Heft, considered casting, as well as Scatter Shot. Now this is a 5 link, it's not a 6 link. There's a lot of possibilities with this, but as you can probably tell, whenever we cast this, we just cast a bunch of bones and it does quite a bit of damage. There will be footage of gameplay. You'll see some elites and some bosses and stuff. I did fight a tier 15 boss in the footage. I did use a lot of the impel to show you guys how much damage that does, and then I kind of started to spam Bonestorm, so keep an eye out for that, just so you guys understand. Like, I want to show you what the kind of damage it can do. So while it definitely could do a lot, still need to work on it, so just keep that in mind. Next we have Bone Cage. Bone Cage deals a bunch of bones around you, and then it will pin enemies, and this is how we're functionally getting our frenzy charges, and I'll go over that in a second. Let's go over it. We have Arcane Tempo for cast speed, Spell Cascade, so we have multiple bones prisons spawning, Inspiration for mana, because mana is pretty big, and when you have less mana cast on it, it makes it much cheaper on your life as well, so this is kind of a dual benefit. And then we have Magnified Effect for more AoE, which we will eventually get a 6 link for this as well to give us more stuff on it. Next we have Vulnerability. This is a physical based build, so vulnerability is going to make things more vulnerable to physical damage, so this is really nice. We're going to be putting Persistence on it to make the duration last longer, and then we're going to put Decaying Hex. I just put it on here because it just deals some damage based on your HP. Don't really need this. There's other things you can put on. I think I just randomly slopped that in. We're using Grim Feast because this is a energy based shield based build, which means you can double your energy shield with this if you get the benefits. Grim Feast, we have Cannibalism for sustain, and then we have Combat Frenzy because we want to generate frenzy charges, because whenever you generate frenzy charges, you can empower this ability and it will do explosion. Now obviously I can't do that because I can't pin anything here, but that's kind of the concept behind it, so that we can get more damage out of this. Now, how do we generate Combat Frenzy? And I'll show you after this. We get Profusion for more charges, and then we get Vitality. But how we do this is pretty simple. Because of this ability here, the Bone Cage will actually pin enemies. And just like our other build with the Gemlane Legionnaire, whenever you pin, freeze, or you do electrocute, you actually gain a frenzy charge. And when you generate a frenzy charge, if you have this node here, what is it called, Resonance, this will convert your frenzy charge into a power charge, giving you the ability to essentially farm power charges. You can get 3 power charges and power this, and it deals a lot of damage. That's the core concept behind the gems, so that's what we're doing. With that out of the way, let's go over to our passive skill tree and kind of get a concept of what we're going for here. Of course, you have to take Sanguine. The moment you get in, there's nothing we can do about it. I really don't like that, if I'm being honest. I think that's a little annoying. I know a lot of people had a problem leveling with this. I actually didn't have a problem leveling with this. What I simply did was I just scale crit early on, just scale crit, and a lot of her spells have base crit. I used both of these skills basically the moment they came and used them every time I could. I do like through and through, and they have a base crit chance of 15%. And so scaling crit wasn't that hard. I think by the time I got to like Act 3 or something, Act 2 or Act 3, I had 50% crit. So it wasn't that hard. Almost every time I killed anything, it just spawned a life globe, and it was easy to kind of sustain health, and leveling was super easy. Anyway, we grab Life Leech and Vitality Siphon for the extra leeching on spell damage. We have crit chance here as well as the Gore Spike, and I'm not exactly sure what we're going to get on the last one. That'll be in the build planner whenever we do decide to figure it out. Could get Open Sword, we could get Blood Barbs. Probably Blood Barbs will be the go-to, if I'm being honest. Blood Barbs is really awesome, but we'll see how it goes. Not exactly sold. For our passive skill tree, how we're doing this is simply going this way. We grab the spell damage, the cast speed, grab more energy shield here. We came over here and grabbed, we came middle, we grabbed the critical overload because we want the crit. Then we came down here and grabbed this jagged shard for the more spell and the crit. Over here, came to the right, grabbed the potent incantation for the increased spell damage, and then came over here and grabbed all the regeneration, gave me all the crit and energy shield and all that kind of stuff here. Came over here, grabbed all this like bone stuff because you want the extra physical damage. This is going to give you crit and physical. We grab all the cast speed and mana regeneration because mana is pretty nice for you because this is a mana heavy build. Resonance, as we said before, you can actually get this pretty early, so it's kind of nice. I actually got this first before I grabbed this stuff, but yeah, you can kind of get this early, do whatever you want. Grab all the True Strike here, grab for the Jugular. You could grab some of these points here. The crit damage nodes are actually pretty nice. Came up here, and then we grabbed Deadly Force. And this is going to be a lot of crit. Came over here and you're grabbing all the sudden escalation. You could grab this one and go here. So we're going to eventually scale crit damage over crit chance once we get like more better gear. But yeah, that's kind of how we're doing it now. Over here we grabbed Cut to the Bone for more physical, and the crit based on our physical will break armor, and armor, you know, is a physical damage build, so breaking armor is really good. And this gives us bleeding as well. We'll have like 20% chance to break armor on crit, as well as with the build I believe it was 20% chance to bleed, and then we get like bleed magnitude stuff. Over here is where we talk about the bleed. This is going to give us bleed magnitude and more physical, and this is going to give us crit. This is going to give us bleed on these little points here. We end up bleeding and pretty much breaking armor with that. Over here we're grabbing this one, and then we're grabbing this one for more AoE. And eventually the plan is to grab I believe it was Aspiring Genius for the mana regeneration and the chance to gain Arcane Surge on crit hit, which is really big. And then over here we're going to grab this one here, increase effect of Arcane Surge on you. We're going to grab all these things here, and we're going to end up having a lot of Arcane Surge, because Arcane Surge give you I believe it's what, attack speed. I don't play mages as much. Attack speed, cast speed rather, and mana regeneration rate. And this will give us a ton of mana and you know, cast speed. So it's really valuable to the build. Oh, and we need to grab this up here as well. You'll eventually grab this for the increased area of effect, because we want to blow up the entire screen with as much bones as possible, maybe even scale more area of effect, but we'll see in the future. But this is the core concept behind the build. This is all the passives. Moving on to the gear, and I want to be very clear, the gear is still in progress, but keep in mind when you have the Bloodmage's passive, this is going to double her life, which she'll have 4,200 life, and with Grim Feast you'll have over 5,400 energy shield whenever the thing like actually properly eats it. And so you'll run around with like almost 9,000 HP life, energy shield life hybrid, which makes you a pretty tanky character. The problem is, like I said before, we need a little bit of evasion at the very least. You can possibly go armor if you want to. You can go armor, energy shield, or evasion energy shield. That's what I'm currently thinking. It's still an in progress build. I don't know if I trust grinding gear games with armor, if I'm being completely honest with you. They seem to have a problem with balancing armor despite having it for 10 years. Just my thought. But yeah, let's go over the equipment. For our wand, we're using a increased spell damage wand with spell damage as well as max mana. We have a crit chance for spells as well as cast speed and 2 levels to all physical spell skills. This is a pretty solid wand. I think when I paid for it, it was like 60 exalted. So it is a pretty pricey wand, but we're in the end game, so it doesn't matter. We corrupted this with increased spell damage, so we got a little lucky on that. So it's pretty nice. For our helmet, we have a Onslaught Crown, and what this does is just gives us a ton of life, mana regen, maximum mana, item rarity, which we are going to do a lot of item rarity on this build. Actually, we're already at 129 if I'm not mistaken, so we don't need any more. But anyway, we have fire resistance and lightning resistance, pretty solid helmet. For our body, we have more energy shield as well as maximum energy shield percent, a lot of life, and that's pretty much all that we really need right now, because again, this is still in progress. But we would prefer like other stuff, just kind of get resistances, things like that. For our gloves, we have more evasion and energy shield, maximum life, item rarity, double resistances. And then we got level 2 melee skills is not necessarily the greatest, but it is what it is. For our belt, life, resistances, that stuff like that. For our boots, move speed, more energy, shield, life, item rarity, and then resistances for chaos, which is kind of nice. For our rings, item rarity, resistances, cast speed. For the other ring, item rarity, cast speed, chaos, yeah, all resistances. And then we have a focus that has resistances. I'm kind of saying the same stuff, sorry guys, but it's essentially all you really need on most builds in this game. Energy shield, spell damage on this, spell crit, increased cast speed, got low resistances on it, as well as crit chance for spells, really nice. And then we just got our normal, and then the necklace, as I said, we got the Rondel Frugality. I got this around I believe I got this week 1 of the game coming out. I just had it sitting in the bank since then because I was like, this cool item could be cool for something, which actually ended up being cool for this build. But yeah, this one has as I said, energy shield, skill speed, increased crit chance. You lose a lot of resistances and increased damage. Not exactly sure if this is worth it as a thing right now, but that's what we're using. There's possibly things that are better, but it's kind of what I like. And we just have normal flasks, nothing too special there. But overall, this is pretty much the build. It's a really cool build. I'm having a good time just casting bones and impaling people. I think it's a super unique build, and I think it's really fun because a lot of times I find a lot of the witch players don't really want to have minions all the time, and I think having minionless build would be really cool. That's the concept. We're going to continue to build on this. We're going to try to make it better in the future and see what we can do with it. But yeah, I'm having a good time playing it. Good rarity, good defense. Need to work on evasion, but yeah, again, I think that's the most important thing to note. Make sure that the evasion is on this, because the evasion I actually think is really big. Don't be like me, don't go without defense. The resistance thing just doesn't work. I don't know, it just doesn't work. Either way, thank you guys for watching. Leave me a like, that helps a lot. Please leave a like, that really helps me a ton. Costs you nothing and it helps. Subscribe if you like the content, and I'll see you guys in the next one very soon. Thank you.